Chapter 21. I see. So it really was a nasty thing. Beatrice commented. Betty had her suspicion, but... She wrinkled her nose and showed expression of pure disgust. I never thought it would be this bad, I suppose. It has been half-hour ever since our fight against those things. Right now I was in the garden with Beatrice, who had been informed about these things, and now she came personally to see them. I asked Rem to leave one corpse so it could be investigated properly in order to learn more about them. So what can you say about them? I asked. Isn't it obvious? These things should have never been born. Beatrice sneered as she raises her hand, fire coming to life from her palm. Then wordlessly she throws it down and burns the carcass. You're already done checking them? No, and frankly Betty doesn't want to. Beatrice answered bluntly. I blinked and tilted my head. Why? I asked. Because this thing should have never have existed or been known. Studying it will do nothing but open a can of worms, I suppose. In other words, some things were better left behind and to remain unchecked. And given Lovecraftian creatures' nature, that would be a very wise decision. Even if these monsters are not the real ones, but it was still very risky. Damn, and I was hoping to get some information that could confirm my suspicion about this, but now I was thinking about it and seeing the situation. I guess it will be better to not press any further. Beatrice herself also seemed to be not in the mood to say anything else after seeing them. Which only makes things become more unfortunate since I barely know how to talk with Beatrice. Among all people in Roswaal's mansion, she is the one that I found the most problematic. Despite knowing what she has gone through and how to solve it, I still found her to be difficult to talk with. It's true that she might enjoy my company in her library despite us not talking to each other, but... that was as far as our relationship went. There was no improvement or any move from there. We were in stagnant condition. It's because I'm not Subaru, who was genuine, cheerful, kind and wanted the best for her. I want something from her, I have hidden intentions. Beatrice herself was aware of that. And also, unlike Subaru, I can't just offer her companionship or a partnership despite knowing very desperate she was for it. Because unlike Subaru, who wants to stay in this world, I will leave one day. I can't just give her false hope and crush it in the future. Emilia and the others were already enough. Among them all, Beatrice was the one who has suffered the most. She has been enduring loneliness for 400 years by herself. That's something that would drive anyone crazy. Seriously, it was a miracle that Beatrice was still sane. And playing on that kind of hard work and determination. That was low, very low. A line that I wouldn't dare to cross no matter what. Betty will return to her library, I suppose. There is nothing else that interests me. Beatrice said as she walked back to the mansion. Beatrice-san, wait. What is it? Ah crap, I unconsciously called her name. Quick, Aaron. Say something important. Rose. No, Roswaal. Crap. 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 Wrong line. Wrong line. Ha. Beatrice made an ugly face when I mentioned his name. What about that man? No going back. If I didn't say anything it will decrease my point. If I may know, what's your relationship with him? I asked. I mean, I know that he contracted you to protect the library, but... I purposely trailed off my words to give a sense of suspense to her. What do you know about Betty's contract with that man? According to Ram, you're a spirit that contracted by Roswaal's ancestor to protect his library. You've been here ever since his grandfather passed away. That wasn't a lie. While in reality Beatrice's library actually belongs to Echidna, but it seems to be the cover story that was given is she's guarding Roswaal library instead. Well, it couldn't be blamed. Imagine how people would react if they found out there was a library that belonged to one of the witches. And I found it was actually illogical and made no sense at all. I answered bluntly, never once have I seen Roswaal enter your library or taking a book. As matter of fact, you barely tolerate his presence. Well, that was obvious, I suppose. But how do you know he never enters Betty's library? Beatrice-san, in last month and more I've been spending my time with you every day in the library. I deadpanned. Granted I'm not there for more than 3 hours, but my timing is random and I'm always there. If he had entered then I'm sure I would have seen him once or twice at least. I placed my hand under my chin, but what gave me the biggest clue about the abnormality is that you always refer to that library as to being yours and Roswaal never makes any claim to oppose it. Got you. Beatrice turned her petite body fully to me, quirking her eyebrow. I could see she was giving me her full attention, taking my words seriously. What are you trying to say? I raised my hands in placating manner. This is unexpected development, but I still can use this. I was not trying to imply anything, Beatrice-san. I'm sorry if I was being rude by invading your personal place suddenly. But my target is not you, it is Roswaal. And what concern is your investigation of him connected to Betty? Truthfully. Only a little, but I personally want to warn you about him. I narrowed my eyes and crossed my arms. That man. Something's not normal about him. He seems to know so much about you despite rarely talking with you. Like what? Well, how do I put it, I contemplating my words carefully. For one, him giving me a hint that you lost someone dear to you in the past. That got reaction what I wanted from her, and it wasn't a lie. I had been talking with Roswaal in past about Beatrice, and he said, someone like her must have lost something before. Yes, it was quite vague and can be interpreted as anything but. Well, Beatrice doesn't need to know that, right? Look, I don't know the details and I won't pry. I continued, but I just want to tell you to be careful with him. I stated, and I'm also aware that I'm also suspicious here. I added while sighing, telling you like this. What's the point of warning someone about something but at the same time also warning them about yourself? Beatrice asked in a tone that used to speak with idiots. Ahaha. I only can chuckle sheepishly at that. While true, I won't deny that I might have hidden intentions, but Beatrice and I swear that I would never harm you purposely. I assured. Beatrice stares at me, long, stoic, emotionless. I can't get anything through her facial feature. Everyone who has hidden intentions will always say that. Seriously, you can be so dumb sometimes. Ouch, that was blunt all right. Sorry for not being manipulative and sly, you lowly hag. But at the same time, you're also often of be smart and sharp. Beatrice let out a grunt as she blew her nostril a bit. Seriously, Betty doesn't get you. That big sister is right, I suppose. You really are a knight with two faces. Really intriguing. After saying that, she turned away from me and walked back to the manor without any further words, leaving me blinking like an owl and staring at her back. Was that compliment? Or an insult? I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be a compliment, but the way she said it. I don't feel like I just got praised. Women. I muttered. Seriously, what else I can say about that? Anyway, now is not the time to think about things like this. I have something else to take care of, and I have to do it quickly since I have to leave soon. He should not waste any more time. He had a limited and very short amount of it after all, so he should finish whatever he had to do as soon as possible. And yet, here he now. Standing in front of her room hesitant. Truthfully, he doesn't know why he found himself hesitating. There's no reason for it after all, and he had more important matter to attend to. It would be best if he didn't see her. He should go straight to the capital as matter of fact. But the decision apparently was taken out of his hands as the doors suddenly opened, the blonde eyes snapped up, and to see a certain great spirit hovering in front of him. Why are you standing in front of the door like that? He asked. You want to talk with Leah or not? If not, then go away. It's kind of annoying to have you standing in front of the door with those kinds of emotions running rampant, while I'm trying to comfort her as well. Why is it annoying? Was I radiating some kind of poison or something? He thought with sweat drop internally. Yes, I want to talk with her. Is that so? The spirit voice was monotone, there was no sign of emotion there. Then go in. He tilts his head to the room and flying aside. Aaron stares at the cat spirit for a few seconds before he gives a tentative nod to him. Puck simply hovering away, leaving him alone without any further words. What was that? The way Puck was looking at him. And the way he spoke. Aaron found they were heavily disturbing. The cat spirit was not displaying hostility or showing any ill intent to him, but at the same time, they were also not kind either. They were plain, neutral, empty, meaningless, hollow. Coming from Puck, who was usually so cheerful and active. It seemed wrong. Granted, Aaron knew that in reality Puck was not a benevolent creature, but he shakes his head. Now was not the time to worry or to be thinking about that. He opens the door without hesitation and enters the room. His eyes quickly scan the room, searching for the half-elf. He found her sitting in bed, her face buried in the pillow that she was hugging. She raises her head and her face met his. He could see there were signs of dryness on her face, indicating she just crying. Aaron. She called his name. Emmy. He called back and approaching her, are you okay? No, she obviously not. That was a stupid question, but he didn't know how else to open the conversation. Okay. Me? Yes. No, I. The half-elf takes a deep breath before burying her face in the pillow once again. I don't know, was her response through her muffled voice. Of course, you don't, that was stupid of me. Eren murmured as he sits on her side, pulling himself closer to her. What actually happened? I didn't manage to get the full story. Emilia only silent at the blonde words. Slowly she lifts her face and rests her chin on the pillow. It exactly as you said. She muttered, her voice was bitter. About what? Killing those children. Well, I did tell you to do that in the first place. And you were absolutely correct. Emilia let out a strained chuckle, her grip on her pillow tightened. Perhaps, if I had done that, they wouldn't have died in pain, she whispered. Eren did not say anything, only staying silent and staring at the half-elf. Puck said it was not my fault. That I didn't know this would happen. But that's not completely right, you know. Those children. One of them was awake before. She continued, a dry smile plastered over her face. I was there for him. I was smiling at him. I told him that everything would be fine. And at that time I could see it. I could see it clearly. In his eyes. There was hope. Her smile melted down and her eyes began to shimmer. Small sob comes out from her mouth. Then he died. So that's what happened. No wonder she looks so traumatized. For Emilia, who lives a sheltered life and was very kind, that kind of thing, without a doubt, was going to shock her to the core. He was right there, you know. Within reach of my hands, and I was about to pat his head, but she looks so broken right now, despite she trying to keep strong, but it clear that it totally damaged her. He exploded. He exploded. His blood was. She starts to hug the pillow tighter, her eyes begin to shimmering. Puck said it's not my fault. It wasn't my mistake. But that's not true. Right? He can't help but hold his breath at the sight of the half-elf that started to cry. Moreover, what really struck him was the way of how broken she looked. And it brings pain to him to see how a kind person like her was showing such a face. That was not true. It was my fault. What happened to them? Emilia rasped out. They were used to test me. Those children were captured to target me, because I am half-elf. That exactly looks like the witch, because I'm dash. Whatever she going to say was cut off by Eren, who pulled her into a hug. Don't finish that sentence. He muttered, there's nothing wrong with your existence. He said as he places his hand on her back. What just happened? You're not completely blameless, yes, but don't ever think that it was because of your existence. Eren himself didn't completely believe that everyone can be born without consequence. No, there was a risk for that. Everyone's existence has pros and cons. Not everyone deserves to born. Ungramayu was the perfect example of this when Kirai Kotomine wanted it to be born in the Fifth Holy Grail War. Its existence itself is a sin already, something that should not have to be born because it brings nothing but destruction and mayhem to the world. But Emilia, the half-elf who wished for nothing but to live a normal life, save her people, someone who was innocent and was hardly able to bring herself to harm someone. Her existence was not a sin. Listen to me. Eren leaned back and stares into the half-elf wet eyes. You're at fault, yes, but it is not because of your existence. It never was. He said firmly, trying to plant the words in her very soul. So don't ever think your existence is something that should have never happened, Emmy, you hear me? Don't. The half-elf shimmering eyes widened, more tears flowing down. She let out another choked sob before she buried herself in his chest, all while letting out a wail and cry out. But unlike the last one, Eren could tell there's a sense of joy and relief within in the sound, feeling of happiness that comes from knowing that her existence is not something that forbidden. The blonde didn't do anything, only embracing her once again with one hand and stay silent. There was no need for more words, she got the message already and that is enough for him. They stayed together for a few minutes, not speaking to each other, only seeking comfort and warmth from their embrace. It was Eren who broke the silence first when he noticed the half-elf was no longer shaking and seemed to have calmed down. Feel better now? He asked. Yeah. She muttered while sniffing in his chest. That's good then. Silence once again washed over them, and this time the pseudo-saber was starting to feel slightly awkward. Emilia seems to have no intention of letting him go anytime soon, judging by how she hugging and resting her head on him. He was perfectly aware that perhaps she was still sad and need more comfort, so letting her hug him longer might be a wise decision, but on the other hand, he had to leave to the capital soon. This will be awkward. He thought with a sigh, you can let go of me now if you're feeling better. He said. He felt her tense in his embrace for a second, why yeah, oh okay. She stuttered before slowly uncurled her arms from his abdomen and leaned away, her face red and there are dry streaks of tears on her cheeks, sorry for clinging on you like that. It's okay. He replied calmly, you needed it. And it's not like he was not enjoying it, under right circumstance he would have let her hug him longer. She smells nice after all, and her hair was soft. And nice? And my hair? Crap. I said that last one out loud, didn't I? The half-elf face that turned red as a tomato was enough to answer to him. Well, now this has clearly become awkward. Alright. He began awkwardly while giving an uneasy glance to Emilia who fiddling her hair and refuses to meet his eyes, I will take my leave then. He said as he stood stiffly from the bed. Only to pause when a hand snaked to his wrist and grabbed it, preventing him from moving, wait. She said aloud, don't go. Stay. Aaron turned to her, face shows slight incredulity, what? Ah. I mean. Emilia hastily removes her hand from him, why you said I'm not completely blameless. She blurted out, I want to. She paused, taking a deep breath once to calm herself, I want to know what my mistake was. Aaron stared at her for a few seconds, eyes scanning the half-elf facial language, take a guess. He ordered. Is it because I did not kill them like you suggest in the first place? She guessed, if I did that. Perhaps those children wouldn't have needed to suffer. She smiled bitterly as she remembered what the children turned into, if I dash. No, that was not it. Aaron cut off her swiftly, that was not your mistake. That was not. Emilia repeated in questioning voice, but... You said dash. I said to kill them because my goal was to keep the village and us safe. Your goal meanwhile, to save them, we had different targets, so of course we found ourselves disagreeing and getting into an argument. He explained while sitting on the bed once again with a sigh, leaning against the headboard, if we were going to use your way then the first thing you should have done was to not approach them in the first place. Remember, those were children affected by something that's similar to a curse, it needs a trigger, and for we all know the trigger was when they got close to you or saw your face. He paused and let his words sink into Emilia, who is now making a horrified expression, this was so she could understand the consequence of her action and can act better in future. However, according to Ram and Rem's story, those children didn't transform when they got near you and while true one of them transformed after seeing you but the other didn't, meaning we can dismiss what I just said. And that left them with another problem, it means the caster was in the village and managed to active the curse or at least there's timing of the curse to active. Or it could be that the transformation was triggered by looking at Emilia's face and when one child transformed, the other did as well. So many factors were unknown and still shrouded in mystery but let's not talk about that now, he doesn't wish to make Emilia become too negative. At least not yet, let her learn her lesson one by one. And you know that I was hunting the remnant of the witch cult that was coming here, and there was a chance that they would have managed to activate the curse under few circumstances. So the obvious thing you should do to prevent that is getting those children out of range from the caster. The half-elf blinked, once, twice, but... We didn't know how long the range of the curse was. And we know there was a chance it could be activated from anywhere. By sending those children to a different dimension. Aaron said easily. Different dimension? She repeated in a confused manner, how? Beatrice San library remember? If her library could block gluttony authority influence then there was very high possibility it could block the curse as well. Oh. Oh, indeed. The half-elf looks dumbfounded for few seconds with her mouth that takes shape of, oh, and her eyes unblinking. Then that expression broke into pure regret and shame, I didn't know. I never thought of. And that was what your mistake. Aaron said, it was not because of her existence, but because she let her emotion and compassion blind her momentarily. How stupid. How could I? Hey, don't get depressed immediately like that. He told her, he couldn't comfort her any longer, not in his current situation. Emmy, let me ask you, do you truly believe those children could have been cured? He asked, you have already seen what they become and what's dwelling inside them, can you look me in the eye and tell me that you could have cured them? Emilia stares into Aaron's eyes and recalls the memory of what those children turned into, and she visible shudder after that. No. No, she couldn't. She couldn't say that anymore. It's not like she lost her faith or something, no. It was what those children turned into. They were wrong. What they turned into was something that even rejected itself. Their existence seemed to twist the reality and laws of the world. They were something that should have never, ever placed a foot on the world. And when those children turned into them, their souls, their very existence themselves were gone, turned into abominations as well. How could she extract whatever was inside them, that was responsible for turning them into such thing without taking their life? This is your mistake, yes, but know that everyone makes mistakes, myself is not an exception. His mind drifted to the last loop where he was relaxing and not even giving a second thought about the village, resulting in letting the witch cult to sneak in and turn the village into monsters. Sometimes, you can't save people, no matter how much you wish to. Subaru, who failed to save Rem from having her existence erased, is proof of this. Even if he managed to return to the right checkpoint, it would mean he'd have to abandon Emilia to Betelgeuse's hand, but the past is already that, the past. What you can do now is to learn and take a lesson from this Emmy, then be better for next time. He finished his speech by giving a pat to the half-elf head in comforting and supporting manner, like a mentor teaching their students. The half-elf did not say anything, only remaining silent, as she stared down at her lap while taking in what the man she considers as a close friend to heart, knowing that he was right. There was nothing she could do to change the past and only could use this as a lesson so she wouldn't make the same mistake and be more careful in future. Welp, that is that. Aaron gives one last pat before he lifts his legs and dropping them to the floor. Anyway, I came here to inform you that I plan to go to Capital. What? Emilia blinked in surprise. To Capital? Why? What's going on? I might know who's responsible for those monsters coming here. Aaron answered after small pause. You do? Emilia gasped as she straightened her back from her position. How? And who? That is not something I can share easily, unfortunately. He replied, don't get me wrong, I want to share it with you. He quickly said when noticing she was about to protest, but this is something that I can't share without confirming it first. He explained, and if I'm right, then you can say goodbye to Capital because it won't exist anymore tomorrow. Or the whole Lugnica, as matter of fact. What? The half-elf shrieked, the shock was evident on her face. What do you mean by that? Exactly like I said. Let's just say those things are not only targeting you but Lugnica as well, and when they spawn, let's just say the sacrifices won't be just children. In other words, it would be children to adults, which was going to doom the capital. Even if the knights managed to fight back, if most citizens turned into those abominations they would be forced to kill them, and when everything was done, there wouldn't be any citizen left in capital. I will explain everything after we're done, right now we have to go to capital. Right. Emilia nodded. Aaron simply grunted before he turned away, walking to the door with Emilia behind him. He about to reach the door when a hand once again grabbed his wrist. What is it, Emmy? The half-elf stares at their connected hands for a few seconds before she looks up, then her face breaks into a heartwarming and beautiful smile. Thank you. She said sincerely, thank you for everything, Aaron. The pseudo-saber fell silent for a few seconds as well. Then, he replies with a smile of an equal one, you're welcome, that's what friends are for. He said as he turned away after saying that. He's about to open the door when they're knocked from there, prompting him to blink, then he opens it to reveal certain blue-haired Oni. Aaron-sama, the carriage has been prepared, we can go anytime you wish. Rem informed. Just in time then. He muttered, alright, I will be there in next few minutes. Understood, then, shall Rem prepare something for our journey? Aaron opens his mouth to say it would be only him and Emilia, however, he closes it when he started to reconsider his state. Having Rem with him would be quite the support, she could heal and at least know how to fight more than any knight that was going to face Hakugi later. She'll also clearly be more useful if there are more horrors coming to attack them since she has experience facing them. But bringing her means slowing the journey. They will have to use the carriage instead, riding a single dragon, and time is the important right now, he has to use it as efficient as possible. Not to mention there's a chance the manor would be under assault and Ram alone won't be enough to repel the attacker if that happens. Ah, there you are. A new familiar voice makes the trio turn to see Ram walking down the corridor. Ram has been looking for you, Aaron-sama. Aaron-sama going to the capital, right? Yes. Aaron answered, what is it, Ram? Roswaal-sama has instructed Ram that if Aaron-sama has business in capital then he should bring this with him. Ram said as she hands him a small bag. The pseudo-saber narrowed his eyes, an item from Roswaal. That man. He knew this would happen, didn't he? Of course he did, he shouldn't be surprised. He going to get that man when they meet next time, but for now. What inside it? He asked as he took the bag from her. A letter of recommendation and honorary insignia of Roswaal-sama family. Ram answered, with these, Eren-sama can be said to be representing Roswaal-sama in a way. Roswaal-sama said since Eren-sama technically has. She paused and her face scrunched a bit, a higher position than Roswaal-sama in Eyes of Kingdom. She did not even try to hide her distaste when said the word, higher, to him, either did her eyes that momentarily turned to glare. You look cuter a moment ago. He commented flatly, prompting the Oni's glare to resume. He knows it was not wise to antagonize Ram, given their current relationship, but he couldn't resist it somehow. Is there anything else? Ram just received a message from one of Roswaal-sama's bird messengers that he will be returning home tomorrow morning. Now that was unexpected news, there was no news from him in his previous life about that. How come Ram didn't tell him about that? Well, seeing their relationship wasn't good at that time. The pink Oni probably didn't care to tell him about it then. Another thing that he missed. Okay then. He grunted, I will take my leave now. When will Eren-sama return to the manor? Ram asked. In next few days perhaps, depends on the situation. Depending on how bad his condition would be after facing Hakugi and the Pseudo-Cthulhu, he had no confidence that he would be returning unscathed after facing them. Ram, do you want to go with me to the capital? He asked. That made the pink Oni blink, so to her sister and Emilia. What? Ram asked. I might need your clairvoyance ability, and you're also sharp and smart enough to see what most people don't. He knew where Hakugi would appear, he could even use his witch scent to lure him, however it would be better if he had Ram's clairvoyance ability. Ram stared at Eren for a few seconds, her eyes momentarily flicked to Emilia, then to Rem, then returning back to him. Ram has been given the task to taking care of the manor by Roswaal-sama, she has no intention of abandoning her duty. Ram refused the offer in a monotone. Ram would suggest bringing Rem, she has a better sense of smell, more than Ram, she would be more useful in tracking. That was not the truth, Ram knew in the matter of tracking her clairvoyance was more useful than Rem's nose, and she was sure that Eren Pendragon also aware of it. However, she was also sure that he caught what her real intention was. You're right in that regard, then Rem can come with me, but are you sure you will be fine left alone again? This mansion is still standing and as clean as always, right? Under normal circumstances Eren would have responded to that answer with a snarky comment, however, he knew that Ram was still irritated with him and was only tolerating his presence as a courtesy to Rem. So with slight heavy heart, he gives one last nod to the pink-haired maid before turning to Emilia and Rem. Come on, it's time to leave. In future perhaps he would fix their relationship, but right now he has something else to worry about. Well, this place is not as good as mine, but... She stared at the living room with a judging look for a moment before shifting her gaze to me. It will do for now, but I can't blame you for that. As the one who owns this place is a clown. She says such rude things nonchalantly and without caring. If Ram was here I was sure as hell she would be glaring murder at her by now. Or maybe she would be worse, seeing as Rem was already glaring at her, the Rem who was not entirely fanatic to Roswaal, and if Rem was like this then I sure as hell don't want to know what Ram would prepare in her mind. Meanwhile, Emilia who at my side was only staring at her, the half-elf face showing neutrality, but I could tell there's a hint of disapproval inside her gaze, she clearly doesn't like this woman presence. It couldn't be blamed, even I don't like her. Here's your tea. Rem said as she places the drink on the table. She stares at the beverage for a moment before she takes the glass, lifting it to the front of her nose and smelling the scent it gives off. The smell is not bad, I guess that man at least has some good taste. She said as she sips the tea, and you also know how to make it. She added while glancing at Rem. Thank you, my lady. Rem replied in monotone while bowing. She only stares at the blue Oni with quirking eyebrow before turning to me. Truly you have strange tastes, my knight, to have another inhumane as your servant. They're not my servant, they are Roswaal's. I replied dryly. Does it matter? What's his are yours as well. She brushed my response easily. Your position is higher than that man's, he should be grateful that you would want to stay at his place. Technically that was true, in people's views Roswaal should be grateful to have me supporting him, I'm pretty much royalty, one that's equally or more important than the royal candidates. Why did you come here Priscilla-sama? I finally asked while sighing. Indeed, the one that currently sitting in front of Emilia, Rem and me is none other than Priscilla Bariel, one of the royal candidates and the one that owns the largest amount of territories among other royal candidates. She has 7 different plots of land that are under her rule through her marriages. How is she here you ask? Well, It has been 2 hours and more. The travel to capital was like I expected. Right now it's already afternoon, around 4 to 5 lunar time. Nothing happened during our journey, other than Emilia asking me to explain things, but I told her to be patient. I wanted to explain everything when we arrived and Rem with us, so I did not need to explain things twice. After we arrived in capital, we went to the house that Roswaal owned, the one we used when we came here. However, imagine our shock when we arrived there. We found this woman standing in front of our house, alone without anyone to guard her, again. And while I was very, very tempted to leave her alone in front of our house, I didn't think that would have been wise. Priscilla Bariel proved to be more than what anime and novel portrayed her. All the information that I got from Roswaal showed that this woman, despite her superiority complex and arrogance, had the fangs to back up that attitude. I don't think her presence here was a coincidence. So I allowed her to come in. I wanted to hear what she has to say. Besides, if I roughly push her away, it will give an impression that I'm a very rude person. Not like I mind if it's her, but best to not antagonize her too much. Not with my D rank luck. I don't want to face someone who possibly has a rank luck. The orange-haired beauty charmingly puts the cup she held back on the table, then she waves her fan and covers her mouth. Her eyes crinkled a bit in what I assume is a smile. I was just bored. She said before she folds her fan shut and wrinkles her nose, truthfully, I'd rather go back to my land than be here, but I was staying temporarily to see something interesting. Unfortunately, I did not find anything that could amuse me, and I was very tempted to leave this night. Leave this night? Just because of boredom? Granted, she here in the first place because of the same reason, but gods, if she was not here in the last timeline then. She was still alive, she wasn't in capital when it flipped upside down by a gigantic horror, she survived. She survives from motherfucking Cthulhu, dodging him because of nothing but pure luck. Gods above, this woman. She really. Her luck can't be lower than B at the very least. This was sort of thing that was almost similar to how Saber dodged a bullet when Lancer used Gibalg. But before leaving I decided to pay a visit to where you lived. Perhaps I would find something interesting, and look where I am now. She put a smug face and crossed her arms under her bosom. For you to come here, tell me, my knight, what is the purpose of you coming here? Can't I just come here due to boredom like you? Try another again. I let out a sigh. Okay, so much for that. Briefly, I glanced to the window near us before shifting my gaze back to Priscilla, who was smirking in approval when our eyes meet. So she did notice. Did Rem notice it as well? How about Emilia? She has Puck on her side. I can't ask about it aloud or behave in a suspicious way. It will make that mouse who spy on us to run. Unfortunately, Roswaal's house on the inside isn't that big. It's a pretty much normal and standard one, and the area is a bit open. Someone can wander around and rest their head on the wall to hear our conversation or maybe peek through the window. Just like what that mouse was doing right now. That's confidential. I said finally, I have no obligation to tell you. I told her, and stop calling me your knight, I'm no one's knight. You're right about that. I was. She admits it. Wow, that was. How about my dragon then? No. I refused instantly and firmly. This woman. I will never be able to get along with her, not until she fixes her attitude. Priscilla-san. Emilia finally speaks, she looking at the older woman with a slight frown. I'm not trying to be rude, but we have something important that needs to be discussed. If you don't have anything to talk about, then can we ask you to leave? Wow. That was. I know Emilia had steel inside her, but seeing it directly like this. To Priscilla Bariel no less. Priscilla shifts her gaze from me to her, blood-red eyes locking on to the half-elves. So you finally spoke. She said, not answering the question, and here I was thinking that you were simply a doll that hides behind someone. Emilia bristled at that, her fist clenched a bit. I'm not that kind of person, Priscilla-san. She replied in annoyance. Your behavior and attitude certainly show the opposite though. You simply made the wrong assumption. Now I ask again, can you leave now? My, what a rude girl you are. I'm not surprised somehow. And it's ruder to insinuate someone's impolite about someone, especially when you're in their house. As both of them were looking at each other, one with a smirk, the other with a frown, and despite there being nothing between them, I felt there was something in the middle of their gaze that was locking together. Aryam. Yes, Aaron-sama. Is this how Ram and I look like from others' perspectives? No, Ne-sama and Aaron-sama look better. Rem answered with a straight face. I see. I stare at the duo that now practically making an impression of me and Ram. I like it. Yes, it's certainly amusing to watch after all, I could get used to this. Then I remember just exactly what kind of person Priscilla was and I feel my joy shattered a bit. Emmy, there's no need to be so hostile. I finally decide to butt in before thing escalated, and Priscilla-sama, by any means she is right, if you're here only to bother us then I suggest you leave. Don't look so smug, Emilia, that was being very open, you're supposed to control your emotion better. I guess I can humor you then. Priscilla chuckled, who are you looking for? I tensed slightly at her question, eyes narrowed a bit, what was that supposed to mean? Oh, please don't try to cover it up. She seems amused at my response, you've come here obviously to meet with someone, there's no other business than that for someone of your stature. Now that she said it aloud, it's kind of obvious I suppose. Like she said, there's no other reason for someone like me to be here, rather it was supposed to be the opposite, people looking for me due to my stature. Come now, don't hesitate so much, I might be able to offer you some assistance. She pressed with a smirk. Assistance? Her? What possibly she could do? She is not a fighter. She is rich and owns a lot of land, yes, but fighting? Nope, granted she's strong enough to knock an adult man 3 or 5 meters away from her with a single kick, but that wasn't something special. Okay, maybe it was, but the point is she not a fighter, she has no skill in a fight. Or does she? Doesn't matter, that was irrelevant right now, I have something else I need to discuss. But her offer of help. I need to talk some higher above, and I need it fast. I said to her, and ignoring the look Emilia shot at me, and I mean, really fast. I emphasized the fast word while making a gesture with my hand, can you help with that? The smirk on her was face gone, and she looked serious and thoughtful at the same time, her fan tapping against her chin as she hummed, let's see. That depends. What do you want to talk about? It's about my appearance to the public. I said. This was actually a plan that I already made long ago, before fighting with Betelgeuse, a day after going back to the mansion as matter of fact. Wait, long ago? Wasn't that plan I made? No longer than a week ago. I mean, my battle with Betelgeuse was 2 days ago and... It's not even been a week. Not even 1 week has even passed since I got back to Arlem village. But it already seemed very long for me. Aaron? I feel someone shake me and I turn to see Emilia, What's up, Emmy? You were spacing out. She said, concern laced in her voice. Is that so? I turned back to Priscilla, who was only silent and staring at me. Sorry, Priscilla-sama, can you repeat what you said? You going to destroy yourself if you keep acting like that. She said. What? I asked with a blink. But I guess you know that moping around won't do anything. She continued with approval gaze, gallant to the last, as expected from you. I stare at her in pure confusion before I frowned, please do not stray from the topic of conversation. She snorted, her fan unfolded and covered her lower face, her eyes crinkled in amusement, I can help you with that, easily. But what you will give to me in return? Dealing with this woman would be a pain in the ass, I'm sure of that, I can already see how her actions will bring misery for me in future, but... The procedure to meet with the one that I wish to talk to was very long, not that long but more like they're a pain in the ass. If I could skip it somehow, then... I could offer you land. I could offer you a group of magic stones that are raw and precious, I could offer you something of that grandeur. Which is true, Roswaal was anything but poor after all. He had a lot of money, really a lot despite him only ruling a few lands, but I'm sure they won't interest you at all. Look who wasting time now. Priscilla chuckled, get to the point, Aaron. I will, and I do know what interests you but... I slowly turned to Rem, it appears there's some mouse wandering about our lair, can you send them away? I said aloud. The blue Oni blinked once before she nodded, Rem shall do that. She replied in equal loud voice. And just like that, I hear their sounds of feet skidding on the ground through the window followed by running. Judging by how the steps sounded, it clear whoever it is escaped in a slight panic. Make sure he stays away from here, Rem, and don't let anyone get close anymore. I said. Yes. Rem replied as she went to the door and leave. Is it wise to let him go? Emilia asked, making me turn to her, I mean, you did that purposefully, right? So. Well, color me impressed, I'm surprised. Priscilla commented with quirked eyebrow, you did know there was some peasant sneaking about, and here I was thinking you were oblivious to it. You're underestimating Emmy too much, Priscilla-sama. I spoke before Emilia could reply, I didn't need them to arguing, as for your question Emmy, It is, I let them go on purpose because I have some idea who sent them in the first place and I think this can be used to our advantage. As matter of fact, I managed to catch glimpse of the mouse appearance, not completely but their outfit is enough to give me an idea who they're working for. Emilia put on a thoughtful face for a few seconds. Well, I guess if you gave the information intentionally and put it that way, then it's not a bad thing. She muttered with an agreement. I give a small nod to her before turning to Priscilla. I narrow my eyes slightly at her smirking face and set my face to scowl. I already said it once and I will say it again to you, and this time please etch it into your mind. Emilia is my friend, don't talk ill of her in front of me. I said firmly, my eyes glaring directly at her. Priscilla met my stare with an amusing look rather than insulted or offended one. It's as if my declaration is a funny joke to her. You're funny person, Aaron. She stated. Now, since that rat has gone, what are you going to offer to me? She doesn't need wealth, she already rich enough after all. She didn't need lands or territory, she has plenty already from her dead husbands. Only one thing she wants right now, and that is one favor from me. I offered, you get one favor from me, where you can ask something of me and I will do it for you. Aaron. Emilia sounded horrified at my offer, she clearly did not approve my decision, but I ignore her. Priscilla Bariel doesn't want or need money, territory, or military power, she has them all right now and she not greedy like Anastasia. Nor does she want to increase her power in political aspect like Crush Karsten. No, what she wants currently is me, I'm the one who piqued her interest right now, and she wants to have me. So offering favor from me is the only thing I could do if I wanted to make a deal with her. But nothing illegal or immoral. I added in strict voice, and I won't become your knight, no, I won't bend down to you and if you try as so much as to chain me. I purposely trailed off and giving her look. Resorting to threats now. It's not a threat, it's a promise. But that doesn't mean I will bow down to her, no. Owing a favor is different from chaining myself to her. I'm sure the favor she would ask in future will be troublesome, but right now I will take all help I could get. When I left the mansion in the previous life it was around 4:30 solar time. The capital was attacked around 4 solar time, which means Hakugiai probably already started moving from 3 solar time. And right now it's already 5 lunar time bordering to 6. Which means I have less than 9 hours to make a plan to prevent Cthulhu from arising. Hopefully I'm right in my guess, gods, I really hope I am, I don't want to face that monster in his full form again. Very well, I'll take that deal. Priscilla said with satisfied voice, one favor, you owe me one Aaron Pendragon. For the first time since we started speaking, she finally used my full name, this was showing that's how serious she was taking my deal. Aaron Sama. Rem voice broke me from my stupor, I turned around and see she's at the entrance. Yes Rem? There's Bariel Sama servant, Al-san outside. Shall Rem allow him to enter? Al here? About damn time. Ah. As expected from my attendance, he knows where I would be going. Priscilla said in praising manner. That because he already knows you have few screw that are loose in that head of yours, let him in REM. The blue Oni did as I asked and goes out once again to welcome Priscilla's babysitter. After a moment she returns with the man. Ah, as I expected, Haim-sama is here. Al said with expecting voice, good afternoon Pendragon-sama, Emilia-sama. He greeted us when noticing our presence. Good afternoon. Emilia replied with a polite smile. I give a slight nod to him in greeting manner, good afternoon, please take a seat Al-san. Ah, sure but... Al briefly shifts his gaze to me, Emilia and Priscilla, aren't you three in middle of something? I don't want to be a bother. Humph, nonsense. Priscilla said and waving her fan, you're my bodyguard. You should stay with me at all times. Just like Aaron here should be with me instead of with her. She declared while pointing to Emilia. Fortunately, Emilia did not bother to respond to her insult, but the way her eye twitched was enough to tell me that she was quite irritated but still managing to refrain herself. I would be grateful if you stayed with her the next time something like this happens again Al-san. I said flatly, anyway, we're about to done, Priscilla-san and I already made our deal, so we're going to leave soon. Then I blinked as I realized that there's still something I didn't tell her, you know who I want to meet right Priscilla-sama? Of course I know, Sage Council Miklatov McMahon, right? That makes Emilia let out a small gasp in surprise while I simply narrowed my eyes. She is sharp as I expected alright. It's not hard to guess what kind of person I want to meet given my stature, however, to pinpoint exactly who I wanted to meet is something else. And to meet Miklatov McMahon was not easy. As one of Sage Council of the nation that was currently without king, he was almost like a prime minister of some nation, and their complicate procedure that needs to be filled to meet him, not to mention they lived in different district and area of this city. Which means it would have taken quite the amount of time for me to meet him, and time is something I don't have now. That's why I accepted her help. If she could help me meet him sooner and without the problematic procedures, then I would be willing to give her that one favor. Aaron, why do you want to meet Sage McMahon? Emilia asked, is it really that important? She looked so concerned. I mean, you did say that this involves the safety of the capital, but you still yet to explain everything to us. She's right. I still haven't explained everything to everyone. And truthfully, I still don't know how to explain it properly. There are still things that I need to hide from them, not because I want to, but because it will open another box of questions. However, they deserve some kind of explanation at least. Well then. Let's see how to get this going. You're right. I said with a nod, and since there's no one spying on us anymore, I guess I can explain the situation. I turned to Priscilla and Al and give them a look, and since you two don't know the situation, let me tell you two how it began. So I explained it to them. About which cult that was planning to attack Emilia. About the plan I made. About how we managed to repel them and kill Betelgeuse that led them. Of course, I did not go into details, just simply giving them a picture so they could understand where I was going with this. I then explained to them what happened today, about what we faced today to be precise. Frankly, those monsters that came out from those children were something that was nothing too powerful. But that's only if they're confronted individually. If they come through in a group though, that was entirely different matter. I finished my story while sighing. Emilia, who listening from my side seems to wince and become uncomfortable when I recalled the entire event, it couldn't be blamed since she got a front row seat to see those children being turned to some kind of Lovecraftian horror directly. Meanwhile, Al and Priscilla took my story simply with nonchalances and an undisturbed expression. So it should be over, right? Al asked. I mean, that was nasty to use children as a sacrifice and turn them into some kind of monster, but seeing you've already slain the Archbishop and the remain of the cultist, then there's nothing else that matters, correct? That was what I assuming, yes. I answered with a frown. Unfortunately, that seems to be not correct. How so? Emilia asked me. Before I struck the cultist, I managed to have small chat with them to gain information. This was a lie. I did not speak or says any words to them. I destroyed them all with strike air before finishing off those that survived. He said they had some kind of plan for the capital, and that the day of ordeal will come to Lugnica. Day of ordeal? Emilia repeated the words with a scowl, that phrase again. She murmured. Yes, but unlike you, he said something about using a great beast to deliver the ordeal, and when it comes to that term, I only have few in my mind. One of 3 great demon beast. Priscilla said aloud with a hum. Yes, and judging from the reports of the misty area that have been spotted around, it's safe to say the beast that will be coming is Hakugii. I continued after her, and among the other great demon beast and other demon beasts as well, Hakugii is infamous for being the largest one. And being the largest mean being the strongest in term of pure strength. That whale's size was about 100 meters or more, seeing as one of its eyes was as big as half of Subaru's height. So, your target is the elimination of Hakugii? Priscilla assumed, but that's not all right. You're right, Hakugii is the catalyst. While true it's the target, but it's not my main objective. From my conversation with that woman that I meet on my way to capital, it was very clear that Hakugii was the catalyst of Cthulhu appearance. However, it was not the caster, at least not the one who summoned the Great Old One here. And if my guess is true, then that means the caster will be close to the beast when the time comes, and that was the chance to stop this nightmare from blooming in full. I see. I can guess what it is actually. I'm not surprised, truthfully. I replied, anyways, we've wasted enough time already, we should leave to Sage McMahon place now. Sage McMahon? Al asked aloud. Pendragon-sama, you want to meet Sage McMahon? Yes, and your mistress here agreed to bring me to him without going through the usual procedure. Ah. Al slowly turned to Priscilla. Didn't we have an appointment with him at 6 later, Heim-sama? What? Yes, we do. We will bring him and her in our meeting. Priscilla said with an amused voice. You have an appointment with Sage McMahon? I asked, sounding quite flabbergasted. Yes, as you can see, I wanted to leave this city today, preferably to some other country for a few days perhaps, and I need a sign from one of Sage elders. Priscilla began to explain. Normally I was going to ignore it and go without their approval. It's not necessary for me after all, but I was feeling quite diligent and so decided to humor them, so I made an appointment with the most bright-looking one, Sage McMahon. Smirk slowly adorned her beautiful face, her eyes gleaming with mirth, but who knew I would happen to stumble onto you, my, the world clearly has prepared a good path for me. That was. Emilia seemed at a loss for words and didn't know how to describe what actually happened, either did Rem, and I couldn't blame them either since I was also left speechless at the information that was just revealed. This is just absurd. For a coincidence this is too damn good for such thing. It's more like planned scenario, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it was, but I doubt it was actually planned. I don't know how or why, but somehow there was something that was telling me this woman was not actually lying, and what has happened until now was simply that. A coincidence. You will be meeting Sage McMahon at 6, and it's already past 5 now. I said after regaining my composure, then why don't we go to his place now? The earlier the better. You can't just hasten someone like that, my knight. Priscilla replied plainly, we will go soon, yes, but for now. I find this tea, she raises her cup, delicious, so I shall enjoy it first before we leave. She said while elegantly sipping her drink. This makes my eye twitch, this woman. Having a large amount of luck or not, she was still not someone who I found I was able to like. Besides, my bodyguard here has some question for you. And with that, I started to curse inwardly. One of the reasons why I wanted to finish dealing with her as fast as possible was so I could avoid conversations with Al, who comes from the real world. And right now I can't avoid it because we have a direct confrontation like this. Damn this woman and damn this world. You did. I feigned ignorance while turning to Al. Ah, yes. Al sounded modest and humble when I turned my attention to him. I have few questions actually. I see. I drawled as I began to brace myself. Let's see how this conversation will flow. What do you want to ask? I asked. Well, the truth is I'm a bit familiar with Pendragon-sama family. Al said. That made Emilia and Rem pay full attention to the single-armed man. I myself simply narrowed my eyes, keeping my nonchalant expression. You are? I asked. Yes. He nodded. It's also because I come from land beyond Great Waterfall. He declared. A surprised gasp came out from Emilia's mouth, and despite not see it, I could hear Rem breathing hitch for a moment. Really? Emilia asked, you come from the same place like Aaron? Well, I won't say we come from the same place. Al let out a small chuckle. Before I transported here I was from Japan. Japan. I rolled the word in my mouth. That was land on the East continent, correct? From the Asia continent. Yep, Japan is one of the nations that are included in Asia continent. Al confirmed with a nod. By the way, Pendragon-sama, by any chance are you related to Arthur Pendragon that's recorded in the legend? I knew it. He not foreign to Pendragon name, and it wasn't surprising I suppose, even if he came from Japan, the legend of King Arthur was very famous after all. I'm related to him, yes. Related by blood? Yes. Wow. Al let out a whistle of admiration. I already suspected it when I heard your full name, but to have it be confirmed directly like this. Arthur Pendragon. Emilia spoke aloud. Who's that? Al turned to me. I could sense a questioning gaze from under his mask. You didn't tell them? I found such matter to be unimportant. I replied nonchalantly, there's no use to mention such thing here. I see. Al clearly not expected that to be my answer, judging from his response. Then, is it fine if I talk about it to other? If you want, it's fine. Besides, I'm also curious how much you know about my family. It not much actually. Al rubbed the back of his helmet as if it would do something to his head inside. I only know few things, I barely remember them as matter of fact. I want to know. Emilia said, can you tell me, Al-san? I focused my gaze on her momentarily, for her to show such curiosity. I guess she would also want to know more about me. It's not much really, only the basic. Al said, like Arthur Pendragon is king of Britain and has the holy sword Excalibur. What? Emilia shouted, face showing a shock and surprised expression. The same thing occurs to Rem, and this time even Priscilla was showing an interested look. K-King? Yeah, he's so famous to the point he was recorded in history, and there was also theaters still doing plays about him even now despite it already being hundreds of years. He is a legend from where we come from. Emilia and Rem slowly turned to me, the former practically looking at me with wide eyes and was slightly shaking. And you share same last name with that king? Emilia stuttered as she stares at me with awe and shock. Then the dots in her mind seemed to connect together, the half eyes widened further at the realization. Then, why you, Aaron, you're You're royalty. She squeaked out. In a way, yes. I admitted, I'm related to King Arthur, so yes. You can say I'm royalty by blood. There was silence as Emilia gaped at me and I shamelessly take amusement from her expression. I also noted that Priscilla was also doing the same as me, judging from her smirk that was covered by her fan. And you never told me this? She demanded. It was not important. I repeated. Of course it is. Aaron. You're a royalty. That's not something that dash. It's not important because it has no meaning here. I cut her off swiftly, prompting her to close her mouth. I might be royalty but I'm not in my world, not in my land, I'm as good as a commoner in eyes of people here. A king who has failed and lost his country. Has no right to call himself king anymore. My tone must have been stricter than I intend to, seeing as Emilia seemed to shrink a bit in her seat and I feel slightly guilty, but I ignored it and she focused back to Al. What else do you know, Al-san? Well. They're also mentioned about his family and other figures. Such as Arthur Pendragon's surrogate brother Sir Kay and... He trailed off suddenly. Something must have crossed his mind for him to pause like this. Pendragon-sama, if I may ask a question. Yes? I inquired. It might be a bit rude and you're going to angry, so... What is he going to ask actually? I will try my best to keep my emotions in check. Well... Al seemed to still hesitate to say it aloud and was becoming uncomfortable. Just ask your question. Priscilla ordered, you wasting time here. That rich coming from you, we're also wasting time right now, no thanks to your tea. Alright then, Pendragon-sama. He called and his voice seemed quite serious. By any chance, are you a descendant of Morgan Le Fay? Well. He was right. It was rude to ask me such question and... You can't blame me for my father decision, our father decision Morgan. He didn't wish for it to be like this. He never wished for things to come to this. It's a little late for that. You've made it perfectly clear how you feel about me, dear brother. Truthfully, he was not particularly ecstatic when he found out that he had a sister, an older sister to be precise, but it could be said that he was happy? Relieved? Yes, that's more like it. He was relieved to hear that he had some family out there. His memory of his father and mother was nothing but a blur and short glimpse, but in his heart, he found the concept of a family confronting. Those feelings though changed to shock, shame and horror when found out what kind of wicked deed Morgan had done to their homeland. And whose fault was that? I'm not the one who ruined this kingdom or was trying to bring a plague to this land. He replied, his voice carrying slight contempt despite having a stoic and calm expression over his face. You have no right to be on that throne, Arthur. From the beginning until now, Britain is mine. The beautiful witch hissed, voice filled with unrestrained hatred, I am the rightful king, more than you, more than anyone else, I am the legitimate owner of this island. And yet look what you have brought upon this island. He gestured to their surrounding with one swipe of his hand, war, death, and chaos. People living in darkness, fearing of you and your wicked deed. The oldest child of Pendragon let out a growl that opposes her appearance, eyes gleaming with ominous and dark emotion, I'm going to enjoy killing you, Arthur Pendragon. And he was right. I am quite angry at that question. No, I'm not. I said, my voice stolid and stoic, I'm not a descendant of that woman in any way. Alright, I must be more than a little pissed judging by how I spat out, woman, which was strange seeing Morgan was. What possibly made you think that? Well. In legend, King Arthur died in hand of his son Mordred Pendragon. Al said, he seems a bit intimidated by my tone, and his wife. Well, she eloped with Lancelot and Dash. Husband. Her voice was soft, melodic, benevolent, you look troubled. Is there something that bothers you? There's always trouble every day, Guinevere. He said while stripping off his coat, and as king, ruler of this country, it's not uncommon for me to face trouble more than most people. You know what I mean, Arthur. She draped over his shoulder and he feels her sweet scent, warm breath and comfort presence pressing to his back, you've been quite lately, Arthur. I almost feel as if I am sleeping next to a doll. She murmured. Is that so? He asked, his voice mellowing as he laid his head back, resting on her arm, I apologize then if I make you feel so. I have had a bit on my mind recently. She hummed in his ear, it was almost like a lullaby to him, do you mind sharing it with me then? What could possibly be bothering you? You would almost think you were running a country. A faint smile fluttered across his lip. Guinevere always has a way to cheer him even if he's not in right mood. As expected from the woman he married, granted their marriage at the beginning was because of politics and such, but he wouldn't hesitate to admit for the rest of his life didn't regret marrying her. She's good friend and wife after all. And there are no other children that recorded to be his. Al said. I see. It's actually not a surprising question, the fate of Pendragon family is pretty much unknown after all. Most people only knew that Arthur was killed by Mordred, his own son, both of them dying technically while there was nothing mentioned at all about Morgan. Some speculate that she survived and won the Civil War or something. But in reality, she didn't win. Britain fell after all. Thus Morgan didn't have any land to rule, her dream to be queen was gone just like that. Ironic that she wished Arthur dead so she could rule Britain, but when he finally did die the kingdom fell at the same time. So yes, his question was actually not illogical in public perspective, given that Morgan did survive after the Battle of Camlan, so it could be said that I was her descendant instead of Arthur's. Still, to be reminded about Guinevere. For an unknown reason, I feel my heart ache with invisible and mysterious pain. To answer your question, I'm not descendant of Morgan Le Fay, I'm more related to Arthur Pendragon. I said in a voice that spoke that this was a sensitive topic, so drop it before I punch you in the face, to him. And Al caught my tone obviously as he dropped the topic in instant. If Pendragon-sama says so, then I won't pry any more about that. He said, can I ask another question though? As long as not related to Morgan Le Fay and Mordred Pendragon, yes. Sure. Al seems happy at my answer. This was a surprise, never thought he would be a fan of Arthurian legend. How about the sword in stone? Excalibur. Caliban. I corrected, the sword in stone is Caliban, Excalibur meanwhile is another sword. I can't see it, but he obviously blinking under his mask, they're different. Yes. Caliban was truthfully King Arthur's first sword, Excalibur meanwhile was given by Lady Vivian. I explained before I frowned again, no thanks to Morgan. I muttered darkly. Vivian? As in the Lady of the Lake Vivian? Al asked, voice filled with more interest. Yes, the one in the same. I confirmed. Lady of the Lake? Emilia asked. She. I paused, contemplating what I should say. Did fairies even exist here? I mean, there were elf and spirits, so logically fairies should have as well, but the fairies here and Naceverse were obviously different, and it could be degrading for Lady Vivian to be compared to fairy from here, so you can say she's akin like a great spirit. Like Puck? Emilia asked, sounding interested. In a way, perhaps, however her specialty is not in combat, she is more like a creator. I said, trying to find the right words, she's great lady. I murmured with a fond smile as I recalled the great fairy. Very benevolent and understanding, even if she and Arthur rarely meet, she still understood how heavy the burden the man struggled with and did not hesitate to help him at all. Suddenly I felt chill up my back and I blinked, then I turned around, but I found nothing that was threatening save for Emilia and Rem. Weird. I turned back to Al and asked, is there something else you want to know? Nope. He answered after a moment of silence, I guess that's all for now. Well, if that was all then. I turned to Priscilla, who placed her cup on the table. Shall we go now? Priscilla looks back at me, her eyes held mysterious gleam, then she shifts her gaze to outside and stares at it for a few seconds. What is she looking at? Her gaze promptly returned to me and she folds her fan with a snap, while giving me smirk. It no longer looks to almost be raining, so indeed we shall. I hold the urge to gape and pull a dumbfounded face after hearing her declaration. She didn't want to go early just because it looks like it was about to rain? Didn't she understand just how urgent this situation was? They were going to use the carriage, so it wouldn't have mattered if it had rained. Not to mention I still have to meet someone else. God damn it. This woman is bullshit. Aaron said aloud, voice flat and expression utterly dull as he stares at the event that lays in front of him. Pardon? The knight before him asked, his blue eyes blinking in confusion. The blonde ignored the handsome knight's response, he simply tilted his head back to Priscilla, who looks nonchalant at his stare. Then he returns his gaze back to the knight, the look he gives to him is nothing but a blank gaze, disturbing the man slightly. Aaron? Emilia called, apparently also perturbed by her friend's behavior. Aaron though ignored the half-elf call, his gaze solely focused on the man in front of him. This is bullshit. This is absurd. This is... Tell me again, Reinhard. His green eyes glued to the red-haired man, blues ones, why you in front of Sage McMahon house? he demanded. The Knight of Knights tilts his head, looking confused at the man question, but he answers it nonetheless. I'm patrolling around here today. Don't you have to stay at Feldside? While that is true, I'm still Knight of Lugnica. I have an obligation to my country. My patrol time may be decreased, but it's still there, and today is my shift to walk around here. Reinhard explained to the man, though it's not long, I only patrol for 1 or 2 hours. Eren stares. He stared, and stared. Then slowly he turned to Priscilla, and you didn't happen to know about this, did you? Of course not. Priscilla answered plainly, why would I have bothered myself with such trivial and mundane matter? She was entirely right on that part. He couldn't imagine the orange-haired woman checking for such things, she was too lazy and uncaring to do that. Which means, don't tell me it's because it was true that he wanted to search for the Knight of Knights after the meeting with Sage McMahon, and to do that he was going to look for him through the old man, since he knew someone of Reinhard's stature would be quite bothersome to meet. He is the main weapon of Lugnica after all. It was blessing and luck that Felt managed to get him to be her knight. There's a reason why the nobles were outraged when Felt declared her future vision for Lugnica, which was a revolution, and Reinhard was still supporting her vehemently. And now he meets with him just when he arrived in front of Sage McMahon's estate. This was just too good. Sage McMahon is one thing, but meeting Reinhard? That was too much. Coincidence? Possibly, but Eren's eyes drifted to the blood-stained bride once again, his gaze locked onto her whole figure. This was not a mere coincidence. What would that look? Priscilla asked, noticing how the blonde was analyzing her. A beautiful smirk fluttered across her face. Did you finally realize my magnificent charm? It wasn't mean to be a joke despite how she made it sound. Her words carry a hint of authority and proudness. It was clear that she was also aware meeting Reinhard here was simply a coincidence that occurs the moment he allied himself with her. If they decide to leave earlier or later, there was a large chance they wouldn't have met Reinhard when they arrived here. Her timing and decision were simply that, luck, but it doesn't change the fact that it was very, very effective. Was that the right word to describe their situation? Probably not, but the result was obviously very benefiting. The first time was bullshit, but now it's starting to become creepy. You haven't convinced me of anything. Eren denied the orange-haired woman with flat voice and expression. He promptly turned away from her after that, facing the red-haired knight before she could reply to him. Reinhard, I wanted to talk with you about something important. Something important? Reinhard blinked. Yes, really important, this about the safety of whole Lugnica. The Saint's sword gaze sharpened at his declaration, his blue eyes locked on the man's face, searching for how deep the man's words were in any non-verbal sign or message that hid or covered the truth. You're serious? He said that after a moment of silence. It's really that dire? Yes. Eren replied with stoic voice, yes, I am. Reinhard, know that I'm very serious. The kingdom is at stake here. If something goes wrong, then you might as well say goodbye to Lugnica. The strongest knight of the Dragon Kingdom was a loss for words after hearing that. He was not a stranger to hearing such statement considering his status as the Ace of Kingdom, but somehow hearing it from Eren made the situation seem more dreadful and dangerous. Meanwhile, Eren's companion, Emilia, Rem, Al and Priscilla simply watched the conversation. While the last two didn't care, the first two did, especially the half-elf. She briefly cast a glance to Eren back and unconsciously clenched her fist under her hood. She was still not comfortable to showing her full appearance in public, so she wore one, when remembering the information she got in last few hours. Eren was still hiding something from her, quite a lot, and it was also very obvious as matter of fact. She was sure that the man himself knew that she was aware of it, and that was the only thing that stopped her from asking any question of him for now. Because if Eren was making such an obvious move, then it was clear he would explain himself later. He's not a person who would rock the boat, a metaphor that she learned from him, while exposing himself. No, he has agenda, a hidden motive. He was always like that after all. There was a reason why Ram called him Knight with Two Faces. After all, that epithet suited Eren in Emilia's opinion. Despite how chivalrous, gentle, kind and noble he was, Eren could be quite cunning and sly if he wanted to. And after everything over, he would always explain everything to them, telling them the reason for his actions and the benefits of it. And for that reason, despite how very confusing and abstract everything was happening right now, Emilia refrained herself from asking him. Not when he was really serious like this. Besides, she also needs time to process everything that she just got. Eren may be able to shrug off that he's practically royalty, but that's not actually something that just could be considered as nothing. That would explain a lot of things. From the way he spoke, the way he walks, to his outfit and mannerism. All of them were refined and high class, a sign of someone who lived in luxury and of nobility. A sign that she found very strange and unusual for someone who lived in the middle-tier class family as he claims to be. And while true, she was quite disappointed that he lied to her, and normally she would be upset, but it's not important because it has no meaning here. I might be royalty, but I'm not in my world, not in my land. I'm as good as a commoner in eyes of people in here. The way he said it. There was something that made that statement seems heavy. He didn't show it and perhaps was unaware, but when he spoke, Emilia could see there was an intense pain and bitterness under his voice. Obviously it was a sensitive and a taboo of a topic for him and he did not wish to speak about it. While that was frustrating, as she wanted to know, but at the same time she doesn't want to invade his privacy any further, it makes her cringe when she remembers what happened in the manor before they came here. The thought of Eren showing such anger and disappointment. It gives her intense amount of pain. She doesn't want to see Eren with that look, for him to look at her like that, she doesn't want him to be repulsed by her, she doesn't want to experience such a thing again. So with a heavy heart, she decides to shut down her curiosity and feelings to ask him any further. She wants to know more about him, yes, but she afraid he would respond with a rough reply like before and she doesn't want to go through that again. That leaves. She briefly glanced at the man who was wearing a black helmet and dressed in an unusual style of outfit, bodyguard of her rival to the throne. That didn't mean she couldn't learn and understand more about him another way. Emilia admits she's not the brightest person in judging someone, but she could tell that Al would answer her question if she asked nicely. The man was quite laid back after all, and during their conversation he also seemed like he wanted to talk further about Eren's family. Given his status, Emilia couldn't blame him. In his eyes, Eren must be a living legend from his homeland and to talk with him must be amazing. Hey, stop daydreaming. Emmy. The half-elf blinked as the voice of her friend snapped her from her stupor. She slowly turned to Eren who was watching her. Sorry. She stuttered an apology. What did you say before, Eren? We want to enter the mansion. Eren said as he gestured to the estate in front of him before pointing to one of the guards. Sage McMahon is allowing us to enter. Come on, we don't want to waste any more time. Right, sorry. She apologized again before started to walk behind him. Sama, can I stay outside? Emilia pointed ears twitched when hearing the question. Ha! Why you want to do that? Priscilla asked. Well. Al rubbed the back of his helmet again. I'm kinda uncomfortable entering a big place like this. He gestured to the manor. I mean, I'm just a bodyguard and don't have an important role right now. You're more than safe with Reinhard-san and Pendragon-sama with you after all. The orange-haired beauty stares at her servant for a moment before she shrugged. Suit yourself. Chance. This is a big chance. If she wanted to know more about Eren then. Emilia's violet eyes shifted to Rem who apparently seemed to have similar thoughts as her. The blue Oni didn't need any other gesture or signal as she understood just what the half-elf wanted when their eyes met. Then Rem also shall stay outside. Rem said. Huh? Why? Eren asked. Unlike Priscilla who seems annoyed, he was genuinely surprised. The one who has a matter to discuss is only Eren-sama, Bariel-sama, Emilia-sama, and Astria-sama. Rem is only Rem and Rem thinks it will be better if she stays outside. Rem answered. Nonsense. Eren brushed the modest answer aside. You can come in if you want, Rem, I'm sure Sage McMahon won't mind. He said as he looked at the guard that was just telling them to enter. Yes, Sage McMahon won't mind at all. He confirmed. See? While that is true, Rem still thinks it better if Rem stays outside. Rem thinks her presence won't be necessary inside. Eren was about to reply, but before he was able to, Reinhard tapped his shoulder, making the blonde turn to the red-haired knight. Eren, shouldn't we enter the manor? It won't be polite to keep Sage McMahon waiting. That made the pseudo-saber close his mouth, his eyebrow furrowed, and he briefly cast a glance to Rem before returned to it. Reinhard then back to the maid again. Very well, you can stay here if you want. He relented. Thank you, Eren-sama. Rem bowed to him. The man nodded as a reply before he turned to Priscilla, Reinhard, and Emilia. Come on everyone. He said as he resumes his pace. As Emilia followed him, she briefly glances at Rem and gives her nod which got returned by the Oni. Satisfied, she turned to the front, only for her to see Reinhard observing her, and she can see the man's eyes twinkling with amusement. Did he see Rem and me? That wasn't good, not at all. A smile fluttered across the red-haired handsome face when seeing her widened eyes, then it slowly turns to full grin when their eyes meet and he gives wink before he turned back to the front. The silver-haired woman blinked few times, her mind comprehending what just happened. It was only short while later when she realized that the strongest knight actually already had caught on to what their intentions were since the beginning and had helped them when he called Aaron to hurry. This man. The half-elf smiled in the red-haired knight direction as she enters the manor with the other. She will thank the Saint's sword properly later, for now, she needs her mind to focus on a different matter. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.